Calaroga Shark Media.
Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. John Mulaney talked about how he put together his onstage persona and said, I consciously thought, what if you did Spalding Gray with the energy of Bernie Mac? What if what you were really saying was really confessional and had an edge to it? The language was specific and nuanced. It was personal and contradictory, dark, suicidal, whatever it was, but you kept saying it with this big show-busy energy. How big can you sell weird and specific? John said he thought, I'm going to see if you could do a 9-minute story about this and just hit it as though you're doing the best bit about dating ever. I'm going to tell this long story about how my parents had a complicated relationship with the Clintons and how it sort of plays into how me and my dad relate to each other, and I'm going to go on stage and annihilate with it. That's how he handled 2015's The Comeback Kid. Then for Baby J, he said, all right, this is the most confessional one, so it's going to be all jokes. There's no moment that isn't supposed to be very entertaining. Michael Ian Black told Inside Hook, there's really only 2 things on my mind at any given moment, maybe 3 things. Politics, UFO, and poker. Really the only 3 things I think about with any regularity. He said his childhood interest in UFOs was reignited in 2017 when the New York Times, did a article about a secret Pentagon program dedicated to investigating UFOs. Michael Ian Black said, they're like, yeah, we've been studying UFOs for decades. And you're like, wait, you told us that you hadn't been. You told us for decades that you hadn't been, that there was nothing to it. And now you're saying there is? So at the very least, that's a very compelling story. The thing I find so fascinating about this whole topic is whatever the explanation is, even the most prosaic explanation is going to be fascinating, because the most prosaic explanation is that the U.S. has somehow developed tech, or somebody's developed tech that nobody else has and nobody else even understands. That's a fascinating story. Or we all are, the U.S. and globally, the victims of some sort of bizarre global disinformation campaign, which in a way makes less sense than the alternative. Because you have these reports everywhere in the world, Russia, China, Brazil, Mexico, all of Europe, the U.S., Canada, everywhere. So like whatever the explanation, none of it makes sense. And to me, that's what I love. I just love the mystery of it in a way I don't want to know. Nikki Glaser loves her Taylor Swift. She likes being around Swifties and said, I just love her music so much, and singing it with other people love it as much as I do. There's no slight to Taylor. It's just to speak to the power of her music and her fandom. But I have as much fun at a Taylor Swift sing-along night as I do at an Eras Tour concert. Nikki, do you have any goals, a surprise song or something that you're hoping for when you go see Taylor live? I never have any goals because I like all of her songs so much that I really can't be disappointed. But being able to sing You're on Your Own Kid with her in the stadium was really special. There have been songs that at first I overlooked, but I've fallen in love with, like The Lucky Ones. It's so good because it's about the way I feel about Hollywood, and you're quickly disposed of, and how you kind of have an exit strategy for when they decide they don't want you anymore. You have to learn to really like yourself and have other interests, because your career could be taken away from you despite what you do or what you put out or who you are or how talented you are. I always felt that Taylor was in a good mood performing. Of course, she can't always be, but she never lets it show in her performances. It's probably because of her performances that she is happy. Do you have a favorite era, Nikki Glaser? I'm always in the era that she's in. The Tortured Poets department really helped me get through preparing for the roast of Tom Brady when I was really feeling isolated, alone, and unsure of myself, and really all I was doing was thinking about roast jokes. It was the greatest gift because it was a distraction. It reminded me that I care about other things, that my life is full no matter what happens with the roast. It really held my hand through that really stressful time in my life. And then even after the roast, that was a really tumultuous time for me, just handling that level of attention and feeling like I can't live up to it now. And I feel like I just turned to that album so much. Matteo Lane talked about putting together an hour of comedy and said, when I'm on the road, an hour's worth of material, that's at least a year's worth of doing stand-up every single night at the Comedy Cellar, working out new jokes, redoing jokes over and over. People think I do stand-up every once in a while. I do stand-up every night. I'm at the Comedy Cellar every single night. To write new material, I have to be in front of an audience. I think in July I did 50 shows at the Cellar. You can see it within a week. If I've done 18 shows in a week and I start that joke on a Friday, the next Friday it's a different joke. Usually I take May through September to write a bunch of material, and then you work them out in little clubs trying to piece the material together. Thrillist spoke to Aparna Nancherla about travel. They asked her, window, middle, or aisle seat? Johnny Mac loves the window. Aparna said, I've historically been a window seat person. That's right. That's the correct answer. I like being able to nestle into the row and having that wall you can nap against. Now, because of my weakening bladder, I think I may have to eventually accept that I'm going to have to be an aisle person because I'm too conflict averse to have to keep asking someone to get up so I can go to the bathroom. 100% on every piece of that answer. Love it. All right. Do you pack light or do you overpack? She says, I'm an overpacker. Johnny Mac is not an overpacker. I went to Australia with a carry-on. I can get it done. MacBook Air is nice and thin, too. That helps. And you don't need to bring a big USB mic with you. You know, if a famous comedian dies when you're on the road and you have your MacBook with you, you can use the microphone and the laptop. Your audience will understand. Porna says, I'm bringing things that don't make sense. I think if I had a go bag, it'd be like a 3-piece set of suitcases. I was just gone for 2 weeks and I brought maybe 7 or 8 outfits. I'd say I probably wore 4 of them on rotation. The thing about being an overpacker is when you suddenly need one of those random objects like your old journal, you'll be like, see, this is why I need this. Favorite way to pass time on a plane? I always hope I can get some work done on the few times I have. I'm like, can I get credit for this? I feel like I should earn miles for this. No, don't do work on a plane. Planes are wonderful times. You listen to music you never get to listen to. You close your eyes, you listen to podcasts. Like, don't do work on a plane. Wi-Fi should be banned on planes. And oh man, if they start with the Starlink and people start making phone calls on planes again, no. Aparna said, I used to be someone who could sleep on flights, but I seem not to have that ability much these days, so I end up watching something or reading most of the time. Her biggest travel fear, something going wrong with the plane. Obviously crashing is the endpoint of that fear, but then I think really bad turbulence almost feels worse to me. You don't know whether it means you're going to crash or if it's just going to be scary for some unforeseeable amount of time. Favorite travel snack? Some sort of trail mix where you're getting different bits in one bag and it's not all one thing, like a pretzel mix or something. Paul Ogata spoke to the South China Morning Post. He says, I was born in Hawaii in 1968 in the early morning hours after Richard Nixon was elected president. My mother contemplated naming me Richard, but thankfully, she was also a Beatles fan and ended up naming me Paul. I have one sibling, a brother who's 14 months older than me, which is the 2 of us in a small Japanese family. He was the eldest son, which meant I was out of luck. He got all the love, attention, and adoration because in Japanese culture, the firstborn son is treated exceptionally well. It explains how I ended up in comedy, the need for attention and approval. I was on the city championship basketball team when I was a kid, but then everybody kept growing, so I stayed indoors listening to comedy albums. There's a lot of truth in comedy. The first comedy album I listened to was Gilda Radner. In Hawaii, we only had one stand-up comedian, Andy Bumatai. I had all his albums and listened to him on repeat day in, day out. I could recite them verbatim. I wanted to be like Andy. The opportunity to elicit approval, laughter, and applause with my version of the truth really spoke to me. In Hawaii, there was only one comedy club, and that closed down. So there was no place for me and my friends to perform. In 96, I had a very bad idea to open a comedy club in Waikiki. The Comedy Cow was open about a year. Me and my friends had a place to perform at. Robin Williams came through one night. It was great while it lasted. And my finances, hopes, and dreams burned down around me. I learned I'm a terrible business person. I ended up in massive debt and shame. I read in the newspaper that one of the morning DJs got fired from the local radio station. I sent a letter to the GM and said, hey, I'm the kind of person that likes to capitalize on other people's misfortunes, so please hire me to do your morning show. That turned into 2.5 years at the station. That's what convinced me that I should devote my life to comedy. Morning radio was a great creative experience. You have to write 3 hours of material every day and then burn it down because you couldn't do the same show the next day. It forced you to be creative, and I enjoy that. I didn't like the hours. I had to wake up at 4 a.m. to get to the station at 5:30, which was bad. I did a morning drive. It's 30 years ago now. I lasted 4 months on that shift. It was hell. The alarm would go off at 3:33 every morning, or weekday mornings, which was the last possible second where I could shower and get into New York City. And again, no internet yet. I had to go find actual newspapers and read them really quickly to do the show prep before the 5 a.m. morning show. Anyway, the alarm would go off at 3:33 every morning. And the first thing I would say started with the word F. Hated it. I hated it. Tom Green caught up with US Magazine. He's living on a farm in Canada and says, after a hectic day, I decompress by being outside in nature with my dog or riding my mule Fanny. She's a big mule, very large and majestic mare. He made a list of 25 things you don't know about Tom Green. I won't read them all, but some of them. Miss Piggy from The Muppet Show was my celebrity crush growing up. His favorite movie is Jaws. His favorite karaoke song is Space Oddity by David Bowie. His first job was working at Dairy Queen. He made the peanut butter parfaits and said the trick is extra fudge. I collect old coins, and I don't know why. Norm Macdonald was always my favorite stand-up comedian. I discovered him live in the comedy club when he was young, and before he was famous. It was the greatest thing I'd ever seen and made me want to be a stand-up comedian. And that is your comedy news for today. If you enjoy the program, tell a friend about it. They might like it too. And I'll see you tomorrow.